Agricultural water is also the water you use to clean equipment, wash hands, and cool or wash produce. This can be municipal water or groundwater. Surface water is not allowed for these uses, and it must be tested and free from detectable E. coli. Do you have routine practices in place to ensure that equipment is clean and sanitary? What is your method for washing produce? And if you think you need sanitizer in the produce wash water, is it approved for that use, and are you following the label directions?
Tell us about the color coding on the hoses.
Sure. So the blue hoses are water and just strictly potable water. So we use that for rinsing, rinsing the root vegetables, rinsing off tables, spraying down the floors. But then we also have the red hoses, which is part of our sanitizing system. So the red indicates sanitizers going through the system. It's on a separate line, and we have it piped in red so that there's no confusion. Red is chemical, red is caution, danger. So we use Sanidate 5.0, which is a hydrogen peroxide solution, and for organics practice, it is OMRI certified. So that's the one that we chose to use versus chlorine. It's a little easier to make sure that your concentrations are correct. You have a lot less, you have to fuss with it a lot less.
I believe it's less sensitive to pH.
Correct. And because we have well water, in the research on what would be the best practice, it is not the cheapest, that's for sure. But it is definitely, it works well for the well water, and it works well for what we wanted to do and kind of our practices. The Sanidate goes through a dosatron. There are two types of dosatrons, one that can handle the Sanidate and chemicals, and one that's just a regulator, so you have to be careful. If you're going to put a system in, make sure that it can handle the concentration of hydrogen peroxide. It does eat through fittings pretty quickly, so many of the fittings that we have been changed a few times. We like to use these, spray and release so that we're not wasting as much water. But it does eat through the fittings, so you have to kind of be careful with,
How frequently do you need to change the fittings?
On the nozzles themselves, as you can see, there's been a lot of hose replacement parts, usually twice, in a season. We'll go through 2 of these. Also, it's on a ball valve, so these with the chemicals eats that little ball valve, and then they start to just leak. For the fittings themselves, the brass fittings, usually the start of the season.
What's the source of the water on the wash line?
Everything is well water, irrigation and wash line. And we do have to test it twice a year and get it to pass potable water, which we do. We have a very good deep well, and that works for us.
So the water is it's going out the drain. This is refilling up, and it's being sucked back through. It's not really recirculating. We're losing the water, the bad water is coming out the drain. So therefore, we're not recirculating the water, so therefore we don't need to sanitize our water because it's not the same water. I mean, it's being, new is being brought back in. Being organic, we don't want to have to be using any kind of sanitizer. And the last time I checked, I mean, it's not even required for a GAP audit. You don't have to sanitize. We try to stay true to the organic as possible.
This is a single pass water system with potable water. Because we're testing our water twice a year, we do not have to sanitize our wash water in the packing house.
So tell me how this tub gets used.
Sure.
And any sanitizer that you might use in it.
Sure. So this is our cut greens tub. So everything that comes in gets staged here, and we usually have one person who's washing and spinning and bagging. So we fill the tub with the cold water. We dump 1.5 bin at a time of same product. Before we dump the product, we get the concentration of sanitizer correct by measuring out the sanitizer. We use the same Sanidate. So for our greens, we want to be in the 60 to 80 parts per million range. So we take our test strips out, we test our water. If it's within the correct range, we mark it onto our log. We mark what product that we are basically washing. 3 bins is our limit on the wash water. Once we've washed one product, 3 total bins, the water's usually pretty bad. So if we don't have 3 bins to wash and we're changing to a new product, then it's required in our policy to empty the bin and start fresh.
Empty the tub and stuff.
That's correct. We're adding the sanitizer to it to actually confirm that there's no contamination from the field. So because they're going to be ready to eat greens, the reason for the Sanidate is to assure that there's not.
So it's not sanitizing the water so much as it's ensuring that contamination on the greens doesn't contaminate in the tub.
Correct.
How do you agitate the product in the tub of water?
So this is very high pressure. We have very small piping, so it's very high pressure, and it's just from the natural, the force of the water. We have the agitation. And then you're putting your greens in and you're doing it constant.
So you're actually agitating with your hands.
Correct.
And do you wear gloves for that or just clean hands?
No, just clean hands. And then we spin and we bag and we weigh. Yeah. And then they're packed into sanitized bins, 22 a bin, and ready for CSA.
So what kind of water are you using to wash produce in?
This is well water. It's tested every year. I think Lindsay has the test results and stuff.
Yeah, so we can look at those later.
Yep.
And there's never been any problem with the well as far as
Not
you
that
know?
I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
No.
So you're just washing the broccoli to get rid of the bugs. You're not washing it to clean it.
Essentially, yes. Yeah.
You just fill it with the hose?
Yep. Fill it with the hose. Usually up maybe halfway for something like that, since there's not that much broccoli. Soak it for a couple minutes, swish it around, set it out there to dry, and then we'll pack it in clean bins and put it in a cooler for packaging tomorrow.
Okay. And how often do you clean this washing table?
The same time I clean sanitize the bins and stuff. So if there's noticeable debris, we'll hose it off at the end of the week, but it gets sanitized once a month.
Okay. So it doesn't get scrubbed with soap and water the same way the harvest bins do?
Yeah.
It does?
Yeah.
So that happens after you finish
Yeah, usually
cleaning.
on Tuesdays afternoons.
So the same process that you use with the harvest bins and the knives,
Correct.
you use
Yep.
on these tables?
Yep.
Okay.